Super Random Dragon.
The Yakuza series is full of its share of random crazy things surrounding a serious and well-written storyline, and whilst you beat the crap out of bad guys and play mini games, one of the lesser talked about aspects of the games is the food. They don't mess around with meat or herbs like most games, but will display fully fledged menu items, often from popular restaurant chains, with photos and descriptions that practically act like food prawn. See what I did there? It's a food pun. Anyway, the appreciation for food isn't limited to restaurants you could visit, but also many cutscenes that involve tasty food to set the scene or show a sense of bonding between characters. It's almost like a character itself. And speaking of characters, there are many chefs you meet throughout the series who assist you in your adventures. And in some games, you even have a chance to cook for yourself within the countless minigames. Since the series does such a good job of whetting our appetites, I decided that instead of being jealous of the characters, I'd cook the food and enjoy it while playing the game my dang self. And so I randomly decided to start at Gindaco Highball Tavern. Although it's known for takoyaki, which I'll make in another video, I felt like making yakisoba, because it's easy, and I wanted to. Though I've never been to Gindaco, according to their website, it states that the ingredients, serving method, and price vary by store. And while I usually like to use chicken, onion, and carrots in my yakisoba, I'll go off of the image and assume they're using pork, bean sprouts, and cabbage. Now, according to the description on their website, the original noodles developed exclusively for Gindaco Yakisoba are thoroughly grilled on a hot plate so that the sauce soaks in, then the meat and vegetables are combined, mixed with the original blend of special sauce in 2 batches and grilled at high temperature all at once. The savory aroma of the sauce whets the appetite, and the texture of the noodles is just as good as the sauce. Once you try it, you'll be hooked. It's a classic sauce on par with takoyaki. And so to sum it up, it's extra saucy and hints at a takoyaki flavor, and so I'm just going to cook yakisoba the classic way, but add some takoyaki sauce in the process. So I like to start with my go-to Maruchan's Nama Yakisoba. As I said, I'm going to be using some takoyaki sauce in addition to the sauce packet in the yakisoba. We've got pork, as I stated I will use, along with some cabbage and bean sprouts for this recipe. It doesn't matter the amounts, use what you want. You gotta go with the go-to ginger as well, and the Nori seaweed flakes. Now, as I stated, I'm going to use takoyaki sauce. I have yakisoba sauce, but not only is this recipe based on a takoyaki, but the yakisoba has a lot of sodium. And this recipe already has its own sodium in its own sauce packet, so yeah, I'm not gonna kill myself or give myself a heart attack. So, we're gonna start, of course, with a frying pan here. Add some oil. And even though it said to start with the noodles, I don't do that. I'm going to go ahead and start with the meat. And so here we go. I'm going to grab the pork to begin with, throw that in, and we're going to try to brown it a little bit. I seasoned it with garlic and some 7 seasoned spice, but that's unnecessary. I just like to season my meat, so that wasn't in my original ingredients list. Sorry about that. So anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and brown it here on the grill. Flip it a few times. I probably could have left it longer, but honestly, I noticed at the end of this recipe it came out at the perfect tenderness, but you do you. So, once the meat starts browning, we'll let it sit and warm up a bit. But then we're going to go ahead and add in the vegetables and start cooking those up. So I add the bean sprouts and the cabbage. And a little bit of oil for good measure. And we toss that all together. Again, browning everything. Careful not to lose your vegetables. Pour on some takoyaki sauce to steep it in the sauce so that gets mixed in. Again, I wouldn't normally do this. I just use the sauce that's in the packs, but I'm listening to the website. Never had this, but here we go. Things are looking nice and brown now. Once the vegetables and meat are browned and cooked through, we're going to set those aside in a bowl and throw in the yakisoba. Now, this isn't dried soba, but I'll add a little bit of water just to moisten up a bit. That's probably too much, but you know what? Whatever. It boils off in the pan. So, I'm going to now sprinkle in the powder that comes with the Nama Yakisoba. turn down the heat. And we'll just let the heat that was already from the stove start boiling off the water, and it's not enough to boil the noodles too much, so since they're already soft. So we're going to go ahead and stir that up, mix in the powder to make the sauce, and again let the excess water boil off. Now we're going to want to put in a little more of the powder. I like to do it in increments so it gets spread evenly throughout the noodles instead of just dumping it all on top at once. Mix that in. We're getting there now. And we'll just finish off the pack of powder that came with it. So that is the sauce that came with the packs for the traditional flavor of yakisoba. Now I let the water boil off and I'll add in the meat and vegetables again. You shouldn't have to wait that long. You don't even typically need to add water necessarily, just oil. Anyway, I'll add the meat and vegetables back in with the soba noodles. And for good measure, we're going to mix that a little bit. And of course, because it's saucy yakisoba, I'm going to add in a little more takoyaki sauce after a few more flips. And that should just about do it. For good measure, add a little more takoyaki sauce to make it the saucy yakisoba. And we're ready for plating. Simply dump it on a plate. Of course, we have to garnish it with the pickled ginger, as in the photograph, and it's typical on yakisoba anyway. And of course, also typical of yakisoba, some powdered nori seaweed flakes. Now, I typically like to eat it with mayo, but in this case, it's saucy yakisoba, so let's add some sauce for flair, I guess. And a good yakisoba or highball menu isn't good without an actual highball. So we're going to make a highball to go along with it. Now, typically in Japan, highballs are made with Suntory whiskey, and most popular is the kakubin. That is a square bottle, a historic bottle in Japanese whiskey. It's a lower end whiskey, but it's classic for mixers. Bottle isn't as square these days, but you know what? In its place, since we can't get that in America, I've resorted to Toki, the most commonly found whiskey, ironically in a rectangular bottle, but again, it could be like a kakubin. So, I like to use Tori whiskey. It's made for highballs. I recommend instead of using ice, just freeze your whiskey and use a cold soda. Okay? Now, for a soda, I like to use an actual soda water. So, you prepare your mug. You can chill that too if you want. Hey, why the heck not? But we're going to fill the glass 3/4 of the way with whiskey. Again, typically in Japan you'll get it with ice, but I like to do it this way. More bang for your buck. I prefer a actual mineral water instead of club soda, because club soda will often have particularly salt or sodium, and it changes the flavor a little bit. But in this case, I've got an even more special hop water to make it more like a beer, which often highballs are meant to replace. So I will use the hop water in this case. Again, use whatever you feel best. Now we had the whiskey 3/4 full. We add in the soda water of choice. And there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, I can now enjoy my Yakuza game with my Yakuza style yakisoba, extra saucy, with a Suntory Toki highball. Thank you very much for watching. I, of course, preferred it with mayo still, but again, you do you. I use the Japanese mayo. They now make a version for America. Whatever you can get, enjoy.
うまいな。